future. 4 contenders in the NFL. What was it? Chiefs, Bills, Lions, Packers?
Eagles.
Okay. But you think there's a 5th team that should be on that graphic?
Well, I think there's more than just 4 top Super Bowl contenders, but yes, I do think there is a 5th team that should deserve that should get its flowers more than because there's some teams that I also think that should get some flowers from the NFC as well that could make a run. So
a team that has not won a playoff game since the Barack Obama administration, since I was a sophomore in high school.
Yep.
I just want to throw that stat out there while I still have it.
Yep.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. Chus, you think they could be contenders?
I think it's honestly, I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers enough. And I mean that because they're still with like the NFL analysts and the people on Twitter or X or wherever, social media, everyone's still talking about the NFL as if Baltimore is going to win the division. And that very well still could happen. I mean, Baltimore still could win the division. I mean, Pittsburgh has a very hard stretch here. Cleveland's like one of their last really easier games, I would say. And even then we lost to Cleveland on Thursday night. Now, Pittsburgh has a really long streak of beating Cleveland in Pittsburgh over the last 18 years. I think they've won against the Cleveland Browns at home. So if that trend continues, they should win. But after that, you have to go and play Philly. And then you have to play Kansas City. And then you have to play Cincinnati again. And you have to play Baltimore in there as well. In Baltimore, mind you. So there is a lot that's going to happen for Pittsburgh in there. So there is a chance that Baltimore could take the division. But I don't think people are talking about the Steelers enough. And the reason I think that is because people are pretty much assuming that it's going to be Kansas City or Buffalo. And it very well could be Buffalo that goes all the way. But I think the one thing that's very special about Pittsburgh this year is they look very different than the Pittsburgh Steelers team that we have seen since going back as far as 2018. This team, Ben, even in 2020, after Ben got hurt, he wasn't the same quarterback after 2019. He looked different in 2020 and 2021. Obviously, we had Matt Canada's offensive play calling in there too. But this just feels different. Russell Wilson is really opening up. He's kind of proving those haters wrong. Yeah, obviously, we've talked about Cincinnati's defense.
Including you.
Yes, he proved me wrong. I wanted Justin Fields. I wanted Justin Fields to start because I thought for the consistency of the future, I figured, well, might as well have Justin Fields start if he's going to go and start the season 4-2. However, I should have given Russ a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, and I appreciate the comments that told me that I should have, and I'm glad that I did. He didn't look too hot at the beginning of that Jets game, but he just needed to get his feet wet. And now he threw for 400 and some yards in Cincinnati, and it turned to be his second highest career game ever. And that says a lot considering he is in his mid-30s and he's not in Seattle anymore. So what I'm trying to say is the Steelers defense is deep. Obviously, it didn't look too hot against Cincinnati, but I'll give you your flowers. Cincinnati's offense is unbelievable. They are unbelievable. They really are. They are a really good offense. If you guys just had even a slighter better defense, you guys probably would be competing for that divisional title as well. But I think in most cases, I think the defense can do really well and really take over a game. I mean, even Peyton Wilson, a rookie, had a scoop 6 in the game. You have Herbig making plays without Highsmith being in the lineup with an injury. You have defensive players making plays regardless of who's playing. And even if it ends up being a 44-38 game, which, mind you, they put up a stat that the last time the Steelers put up that many points was like years and years and years ago. When the Steelers had reached 41 points, the last time that the Steelers had put up 41 points or more was November 3rd, 2018. And I was at that game. And it was the Steelers versus Carolina. and the Steelers won 55-21, I believe. And Carolina was never seen again. But I think the point being is that if the Steelers defense can, continue to be strong against some of these really good teams, and I think if the offense with Russell Wilson obviously continuing to light it up, he's utilizing all of his weapons. Najee Harris is running like a maniac. Jaylen Warren is doing really well as well. This team is very overlooked because everyone's thinking of Baltimore, Kansas City, and Buffalo. And the problem is the teams that you overlook tend to be the ones that surprise you the most in the playoffs. And I think that since Pittsburgh's not being talked about enough, I think they will make a surprise in the playoffs. And I think they can be a contender. I mean, that goes deeper than me having a dream last night that the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl. It's deeper than that. But I think that this team, I even saw a stat that the last time that the Steelers' defense and offensive percentages were like this, they went on to the Super Bowl in 2008 against the Cardinals. And that was that was a couple of weeks ago. Now, I don't know what it looks like now with the defense kind of fluctuating a little bit, but if the defense is still a top tier defense, regardless of how they've looked over the last couple of weeks. The offense is decent enough to win games. These players like Van Jefferson, you have Van Jefferson, you have Scotty Miller, you have just these random wide receivers getting involved. You have players making plays. He threw to, I believe, 8 different players in the game at one point, and one was not Mike Williams, which is still fascinating to me that they're not utilizing him. But I think it says a lot. Oh, Calvin Austin. I was going to say Calvin Austin.
I was going to say Calvin Austin's been stepping up these last few weeks.
He has. He looks like a wide receiver too, which is crazy. I mean, they drafted him expecting him to be a pretty top player, but he ended up getting hurt. And that's kind of what happened with Roman Wilson this year. Is we were expecting him to be good, but then he kind of fell off because of the injuries. Calvin Austin had the same thing. He was supposed to be really, really good. Then he fell off, and now he's kind of stepping into that role. And I think, in my opinion, like you said, these players are stepping up. The team looks very good. They're winning these good matchups. I mean, if this was last year, Josh, we would have gotten mauled by you guys. If you guys would have thrown up 38 points against us, we probably would have lost 38-10. I mean, we would have. And I think that by us winning a blowout game, it shows that this team can win. And the Cleveland game, like I said, Mike Tomlin has a weird Thursday night statistic. Let's look towards the future. I think we can beat the Browns on Sunday. I think we can maybe keep it close with the Eagles. I think we're going to beat Kansas City on Christmas. I'm going to stand by that.
You're going to call your shot.
I am going to call my shot. If the 15-2 Kansas City Chiefs after that day, they will finish with 2 losses, and one of them will be to Pittsburgh. I think that crowd in Pittsburgh will be loud, and I think it'll be ready to go. I'm personally really excited.
Exclusively on Netflix.
Exclusively on Netflix, but I do have Netflix, so I will be watching, and it's on local channel because it's Pittsburgh. You can't not have local channel watch. But anyway, my opinion is I think the way that the offense is looking, even if the defense hasn't been stepping up as much, I think that the way that this team is, if they continue to mold it the way that they are, I mean, he's already hit that 9-win mark. I think that the Steelers are going to make some noise. And I definitely think they're going to win a playoff game. I definitely do. I think that you match them up against some of these other teams. Let's say you put Pittsburgh at the 3rd seed, because they're not getting 1 or 2. There's like no way. I don't see them getting the first round bye, let alone, the 2nd seed. I think that the 4th, I don't think they're going to get 4th because I think Houston's still kind of iffy up and down. Let's say Pittsburgh does win the division. Your 5th, 6th, and 7th seeded teams are Baltimore, which is a rivalry, and you'll have Baltimore come to home. You'll have them come against you guys in Pittsburgh. And I think that we can, shift some things around and win that game. You have Denver, which although Bo Nix is coming together, I think we can beat that team. And if you have LA come to Pittsburgh again, I think we can win that game again too. And then in the divisional round, it'll really depend on matchups, because at that point, if we're playing Buffalo and Buffalo, it might be a little tough. It might be different team than it was last year, but even at moments, there was a little bit of glimmer of hope with Mason Rudolph. So maybe with somebody like Russell Wilson, Buffalo will have their money ran. But I don't know. All it takes is a little. December is the month where you start getting hot. I mean, they say it every year. If Pittsburgh can go on a streak where they win their next 6 games or something ridiculous, will people be talking about Pittsburgh? Maybe. But right now, people are like, these are the only legit contenders. And even in the NFC, I think nobody's talking about Minnesota. I love Detroit, but who rivals Detroit? Who's a big rival?
Packers.
Okay, what? Who else? Yeah, exactly.
The Vikings.
Exactly. So point being is that I don't think people are talking about the Vikings because they're like, oh, the Vikings are. We don't know that. You can't say it's the Lions and the Eagles, because I think that the Vikings can do really well against these teams because they have that. It's the same thing with the Ravens. I think the Ravens can do really well against the Steelers because of that division matchup. And against Philly, that's a whole different discussion. I mean, we get in the NFC discussions and stuff, but I think these teams are not. I think some of these teams aren't being talked about enough.